this for me, I have to refilm this entire video. I have literally just filmed the entire thing and it did not work. So now I get to do this all over again. Which means you're probably going to get less information. But you know what? That makes it better for you because it's a shorter video. So here we go. I am talking now today, right this minute, about the books that gave me so much ick that I had to stop reading them. Okay? These books just like, you know how like something gives you like, it's just like, books do that too. And these are the ones for me. If you like these books, that's great. These just didn't work for me whatsoever. You are going to know some of these books. They are very popular. Let's go. Okay, I have the percentage when I stopped, and some of them have like one sentence why I didn't read it, and some of them have way more information. So let's go. The first one, we are kicking it off with a banger. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I stopped at 55% because it gave me ick and I could not. Could not. Okay, here's the reason. So banter was amazing. Characters were interesting. Similarities between Red Queen and Hunger Games were there, but it was still distinct to its own story. Those were all the things that I liked about this. Like, I didn't care that it was very similar to those other books. It was still its own thing enough. There was a large focus on torture, and it was quite dark overall. Almost expected when you consider the Hunger Games aspect, but still super dark, like super dark. Why are we glorifying torture? Let's not do that. That was a large reason why I stopped reading. It wasn't too bad, but there was something a little too dark for me in this story to keep reading. The focus on these dark characters was too much for me. I am not a dark romance girly. I'm sorry. I'm just not. And so it was just like the torture. I can't. I was out. Scarecrow by Matthew Riley. He 10% on this book. I read recently this year another one of his books that I loved. This was not it for me. This is like a boy book. There was lots of gore and violence, and I was just not even a little interested. So 10% is all I lasted. Next one, The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I stopped at 35%. Now, I know that this book has been, people quite liked it. The description of Criminal Minds for teenagers is accurate. Unfortunately, it also has a dark and icky feeling that Criminal Minds had too, so I had to DNF. I watched that show way longer than I should have, and I was not going to make the same mistake with this book. Look, Criminal Minds is it goes way too dark and way too deep into something psychotic, and I do not think it's a good idea for anyone to watch that show whatsoever. I get it, it can be really interesting, but they go so dark and so deep into the dark that I just think it's not worth it. And I am good. I was not going to make the same mistake with this book. Those U pages were intense as. Those were sections, I think there was like one per chapter, where you were literally inside the mind of a psychopath, and they were really intense and just a little bit too far for me. I liked the characters and the way they engaged, but once they started to put themselves into someone else's skin, as it were, and diving in a little too deep for me, I was done. I do not think that it's a good idea for anyone to try and literally implant themselves into someone else's brain, particularly if they are psychotic and messed up. That's not a good idea. You're going to shatter who you really are by doing that, and you're never going to really understand the division that needs to happen. And for jobs like this, where you're chasing really bad people, putting yourselves in their shoes and in their minds is sometimes, in some ways, in a very controlled space, helpful, but don't go so far. You'll shatter your own mind. It's not a good idea, and it'll just make you split. Not as in have a split personality, but just like the way that you view your own mind. You need to be really careful in guarding your minds with what you're letting in, and that's not it. That's really dangerous. So, and I'm talking from personal experience, because what I experienced after some of these shows that I would binge and really, watch a lot of, it's really dangerous. There's real life consequences for some of these things. So, and as a writer, I have to be really careful not to go too far into these mindsets, because it can mess with you. So I don't think it's a good idea. That's my opinion, but from my personal experience, it's not a good idea. So to read a book where that is exactly what happens in a tangible way that you can actually potentially mimic yourself if you really wanted to, not a good plan. I can appreciate what this series is and that it done pretty well. I am just not going anywhere near it. I did keep the book. There it is. I did keep it, but I don't see myself ever actually reading it properly again. Winter by Marissa Myers. I stopped at 50%. I enjoyed Cinder, which is the first book in the series, but once we kept going, things started to get creepier the further we got. I kept on as best as I could, but we were really getting into some of the powers and a creepy mental health space. So I decided it was best for me to stop reading. Again, purposefully putting yourself into the mind of someone whose mind is fractured beyond anything else and completely mentally unwell is such a bad plan. It's just such a bad idea, especially for some people who are very susceptible. It's a really bad idea. And the powers were getting really creepy. And so as we kept going with that series, like I said, it started to get creepier and yickier, and like I was barely holding on by a thread. I only made it halfway through that book and I was okay to stop. I think I skipped to the end to find out exactly how it ended, but apart from that, I was done. Alex Feeney, Rock, Paper, Scissors. I made it 43% of the way through this. Almost halfway. It was creepy and not what I was looking for. It kind of had horror vibes, if I'm perfectly honest, and I am not into that kind of book or a story. I've never understood why people voluntarily want to be terrified. Why? Makes zero sense to me. The last book, again, this one you're probably going to hear if you've been on BookTube for a while, which is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I stopped at 20%. Bad Guys with the Superpowers was exactly why I tried to read this book. I thought that would be really cool, but unfortunately it was not just bad guys, it was evil and creepy powers. Dark and disturbing meant a DNF for me. It was so dark, it was so disturbing, like the powers we're in a grave? No, I'm okay, thank you. I operate on, I'm a kingdom of God, not darkness. So I just was not into that at all. It was not for me. I don't understand, again, why are you seeking such darkness in an escape story? Like, fiction is escape, right? Why are we seeking darkness? I've got enough of that in real life. Why would you want that? I don't understand this new turn for people who are fascinated with villain stories. Why? They're the bad guys. Anyway, not my personal favorite, so I just did not read. And I get it, some of these books are like, oh, but there's redemption. Sometimes there's not. Like, I read Heartless by Marissa Meyer. We were literally getting the backstory of the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland, and honestly, I don't know. Anyway, I did read that one. That wasn't one that gave me ick, although it did give me ick when you bought the Three Sisters. Why do people obsessively put those in the books? I don't understand. Whatever. All right, so how silly. Those were the books that gave me ick so much that I had to stop, and how far I got in those. Look, if you like those books, good for you. That is amazing. There are books that I like, which I'm sure you do not, and that is okay. Thanks for watching. If you got this far, like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. See you in the adventures.